Hello, everyone. We're here with the production designer of recent student short film, Witness, today. So, we just want to ask you a bit about the production process of this short film and what you and your team were trying to communicate through this project. So, first of all, how did your opening scene use conventions of the psychological thriller genre to create meaning?
Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me here today. And as a production designer, I'm gonna talk through what did we follow or challenge the convention and how we present the social representation and social issue in our product. So firstly, in terms of convention, our product clearly follow the psychological thriller and mystery genre through setting, visual style, character type, narrative structure, and sound design. Firstly, for setting and visual, we use an interrogation room and the dark space like the corridor or the balcony to create a sense of isolation and pressure, which is typically of this genre. We also use low-key lighting and cold blue gray color palette to create a serious and emotionally heavy atmosphere. This is effective because it reflects the character internal struggle and make the audience feel uneasy. This also reinforces typical psychological thriller and convention, where atmosphere and mood are used to construct the meaning rather than the action. For the character convention, Ryan feeds the vulnerable witness and can be seen as an like unreliable narrator, making the audience question about his credibility. Jean also represents a subtle authority figure, using a calm and controlled behavior to create the psychological dominance. Jay feed the silent sufferer stereotype with his struggle, mainly through the flashback. There's also power dynamic between the Jean and Ryan, where Jean remain in control while the Ryan appears to be nervous and vulnerable. This imbalance builds tension and reinforces Ryan's emotional weakness. This also makes the audience feel uncertain and more engaged as they question whether Ryan is reliable or not. So, in terms of narrative structure, we use the flashback and interrogation structure to create the enigma code. This encourages the audience question what really happened and actively piece the story together to fully understand the meaning. This is effective because it positions the audience as active participant in narrative, which is the key convention of mystery and thriller genre. Finally, for the sound convention, we use a minimalist approach by reducing non-diegetic music, such as the background music, and focusing on diegetic sound, such as the door opening, the ticking clock, or the dialogue between the main character. This can enhance the realism and make the silence feel more intense, drawing the audience deeper in the scene. This also increases the immersion as the audience become more aware of small detail and subtle change in the scene.
Right. So, next off, in what ways does your product challenge typical conventions of the genre?
For example, instead of relying on violence, chasing scene, or jump scare, we choose to focus more on psychological tension and emotional depth. This challenge audience expectation as thriller are often like in fast paced and visually intense, whereas op- our opening scenes choose uh, choose to produce in slower pace and more subtle, creating more realistic and psychological intense experience. In terms of pacing, we use slow pacing with minimal dialogue to build tension gradually. This creates discomfort and keep the audience focused on the small detail. The slower pace may feel uncomfortable, but this is intentional, as it reflects the character emotional state and encourage the audience to engage more actively with the scene rather than just reading the sudden shock. In addition, We also subvert the character convention. Jean is presented as calm and controlled rather than aggressive, which challenge the typical stereotype of authority figure and create the psychological dominance. Ryan is not strong and hero protagonist. Instead of that, he is vulnerable and trauma. This makes him more realistic and allow audience to empathize with him more deeply. In addition, we choose not to show the suicide directly and instead of focus on emotional impact. This avoid sensationalizing the issue and encourage the audience to reflect it in like more thoughtful way.
Right. So, can you explain how a film represents character and social issues, and what effects this has on the audience?
I will start with the representation. Our product construct teenager as emotionally vulnerable, especially under the academic pressure and the psychological threat, challenging the stereotype that young people are carefree. Through Ryan, we show how trauma, guilt, and fear affect young people, allowing the audience to empathize with him. J represent those who suffer silently with mental health issue, reflecting real life situation. Like this problem are often ignored. Jean also present the authority figure as supportive rather than harsh and strict. In terms of social issue, our opening scene focuses on the mental health among the teenager, showing how academic pressure and emotional isolation can lead to anxiety and depression. The theme of suicide is shown indirectly, focusing on emotional impact rather than act itself. This can avoid being too shocking and encourage deeper reflection from the audience. We also use several visual symbolism, such as empty and dark space, to represent the loneliness and isolation, helping the audience to understand the character emotion. Ryan, guilt, and trauma highlight the long-term effect of these experience and the importance of mental health awareness. Mm, in general, our choice creates tense and emotional experience. For example, the low space, the dark lighting, the minimal sound design build the psychological tension, while the silent draw the audience deeper into the scene. At the same time, the realistic character create empathy, encouraging the audience to reflect um, deep, deeper and social issue, making the experience more meaningful and thought-provoking.
Thank you for joining us with the interview today. The answers been very helpful.
Thank you.